Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to everybody. It's wonderful to see all of you here today. I'm so happy to have the honor of starting us off this afternoon. I'm Ann Redding, the Department Chair for the School of Justice Studies, and I was last year's faculty lecturer. Thank you. In a moment, Mark Ferrer will give a proper introduction to Dr. Millward, but I'm here first to remind folks of what our faculty lecture program is, and warning, cut and paste is about to occur here. This is a series of annual lectures wherein a distinguished Santa Barbara City College faculty member is chosen by colleagues to deliver an address on a scholarly subject of general interest. The criteria for selection is demonstration of outstanding classroom teaching, counseling, or librarianship, and unselfish, dedicated faculty service to Santa Barbara City College. In addition to preparing and delivering a lecture to the entire college and members of the community, this individual also serves as the Grand Marshal for commencement and represents the college in other significant ways. I practiced reading that. The first recipient of this honor was Dr. Robert Kassir back in 1979. So for those of you who are not mathletes, this is the 40th annual faculty lecture. As we enjoy Dr. Millward's lecture, I encourage everyone to please consider submitting a nomination for next year's faculty lecturer. Doing so is your opportunity to recognize an outstanding SBCC faculty member for his or her excellence. Ballots are available online. There are ballot boxes distributed throughout campus, and you can always contact me for more information. The deadline for submitting next year's nomination is Wednesday, April 17th. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Mark Ferrer. And don't forget, there's a reception with free food following this.
Hello. Am I audible? Okay. Age, glasses, hearing aids, distance, dyslexic, it's an adventure. So, we are prefatory matter, as you've just heard, here to introduce the honoree Jody on this excellent occasion to take up the quiet with her careful, pressing words. She's here, right? Okay, all right. Now, it's impossible not to say ah, isn't it? Jody was born in a German, Italian, Polish, Irish, Slovak, English, Welsh, Appalachian settlement, grown into a coal town named Aboutnantyglo in Cambria County, Pennsylvania. It's near Possum Glory, if you're wondering. And it takes up 1.85 square miles, has a current population of 2,566. The water comes from Black Lick Creek. The town was founded by 13 poetic lumberjacks in the late 1800s and was first called Glen Glade. The name was changed to Nantyglo during the term of Montel Davis, one of many Davises who have been mayor. Seem to have a lock on that. Through the intervention of his wife, Glen Glade became Nantyglo. This is an upgrade. On February 20th, 1901, in homage to the sweet notes that rose from Welsh lips. In contrast, Black Lick meant brook of coal in obedience to the black outcroppings that seam the stream banks. Can you imagine it? Imagine it. Jody lived in a multi-ethnic, culturally rich gathering of the underpaid, where everyone in multilingual solidarity called underwear gutchies. That's where she went to high school. Is that where you went to high school? It doesn't matter. The average family size in Aboutnantyglo is 2.95. Jody's family outnumbered the entire community. She, the youngest, came to feminism naturally by being female. In Aboutnantyglo, men have a median income of $30,192, women $20,302. There she is. Is that a frog that you're holding?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. It's good memory. Jody could have attended that high school we saw. Goes grades 7 through 12. It's at 55 Burt Street, if you're interested. I never thought to ask her. She probably watched serials and double features at the Liberty. Okay, that's good. Until TV came to town. I'll now take from her bio and tamper with it. Like many at SBCC, she worked to support herself as a full-time student. The jobs she juggled to put herself through Penn State were maid, all-night donut waitress, McDonald's persona, all-night truck stop waitress, lifeguard, nanny, and the subject of a heat stress experiment. Unending, apparently. Her work at the truck stop alone accounts for her varied and prodigious vocabulary and her readiness to embrace most of humanity, despite themselves. I met her when she was a graduate student at UCSB. There were 2 writing programs back then, and we had the good sense to ask her to join our faculty. She's perfect. I just let that sink in. She was and remains the very best and most unwavering of teachers. It is a noble capax occupation, as she proves every day. That must have been a decision point. I'm not going to say anything about Mike. There she is. She wrote of herself. This is the third person invisible. It's a thing that English teachers learn. All of you students, please put that in a note. So she understood early on just how much she didn't know about helping students develop their voice and claim their place in the academy. This led to a lifelong commitment to professional organizations and scholarship that explored the complexities of honoring each student's journey and the importance of building a community in the classroom. Her research and conference presentations have focused on multicultural classrooms, feminist pedagogy, working conditions, the influence of state legislatures on curriculum, and most recently on the impact of AB 705 on teaching, learning, and students. Does that still exist after 705? Okay. Her contributions have been recognized with awards for research, teaching, and service to the profession. I won't read them all because she says she's desperate for time. In 1991, after full-time teaching at Louisiana State and UCSB, Jody moved to SBCC, where she co-founded the Multicultural English Transfer Program, MET, M-E-T, with Doug Fossick and Mark Ferrer. Is Doug here? No? I am. Which won the CACC Academic Senate Exemplary Program Award and the College Achievement Program with Ignacio Alarcon. I hope Ignacio's here. Both are going strong at 28. Isn't that remarkable? Yeah. She was honored for her work. Whoops. One slide got lost. Sorry. It was a slide of her with her students, getting feedback from them about the fact that she won the Hayward Award, which is probably the most prestigious award given out by the State Academic Senate. And now she's a faculty lecturer, so all of that's great. She adds, what these dry facts don't capture is the excitement of working with and learning from faculty whose dedication to the community college mission leads them to so freely share their time, intelligence, insight, and friendship. That must be Manu. Nor does it capture the joy of witnessing the transformative power of education for students who sacrifice so much as they claim their voice and their place in our classrooms, in the workplace, and in the community. Here's Jody.
I was kind of hoping the big guy would go on a little longer so I wouldn't have to talk. I guess I should have just done more. Anyway, my talk today is a grim one. It's about a tragedy. Most of you know me as a joker, but I need to affirm it is a tragedy. My friend Susan and I went to a production of the play, and when we were walking out at intermission, the couple behind me, the man says to her, "I thought you said this was a musical." And she said, "I said it had a chorus." So, but this chorus isn't so funny. In my talk today, I've woven together many lectures that I give my class when I teach Medea. They're spruced up a bit, I admit, as am I. Had to have the hair look good, and if it doesn't, don't tell me. Anyway, I've woven them together with student voices, the insights they share in class discussion journals, and research essays. I often have students read scenes aloud so that they can give out their interpretation of the characters, and those watching can either see their visions confirmed or challenged. Two of my former students, Kirsten Burkhofer and Ben Early, have agreed to read for you today. Neither is an actor, and the three of us have made a pact that if one of us panics, we're all out of here. We're gone. One runs, we're gone. I've also included visuals, and normally I pause over these and students discuss how the artist has interpreted the myth, but today they will mostly serve as a backup. And frankly, sometimes, there we are. Frankly, sometimes we giggle over them. Many of you are probably familiar with the story of Jason and the Argonauts and the quest for the Golden Fleece, but you may have forgotten the details. The Greeks would have known the myth, so you need to have a refresher, and I'll provide that now. It's in the program too. But when Jason's father died, his uncle assumed the throne and denied Jason his birthright. So he will cede the throne if Jason brings back the Golden Fleece. The Golden Fleece is in Colchis, Medea's homeland, and on Jason's voyage there, he outwits harpies, sirens, savage giants, monsters, and more. And he does indeed earn heroic status. And you can see this is what draws he's a Hollywood story. This is what draws Hollywood. You can see him looking really heroic. Look at that. And there's little Medea, looking sexy or being saved. Keep that image in mind as things go on. She changes quite a bit. I just warn you. Okay, so the king, Medea's father, has no intention of giving up the fleece, and so assigns Jason 3 seemingly fatal tasks to complete before he'll give him the prize. Medea, a young sorceress, falls in love with the handsome young hero, and who wouldn't? And when he vows eternal love in return for her help, she mixes a potion that safeguards him from the fire-breathing oxen, devises a plan that allows him to outwit an army's attack. And you could see him there supplicating, promising to love her. And then finally, she makes a potion that will allow the final task of subduing the fire-breathing dragon. And you see she's the one in the middle giving the narcotics out. In short, she betrays her father and homeland for his success. They flee together, and this is a picture we giggle over. That little blonde running, that's supposed to be Medea. They flee together, pursued by her brother, and Medea murders him, chopping his body into little pieces and throwing it into the sea, knowing the ships will slow to recover each piece for a proper burial. And that's her pulling him on the ship, and the next thing you know, it's curtains. All this takes place before the play begins, but raises a question that lies at the very heart of the play. Is Medea driven by passion, in this case love, or is her resistance to her father justified? After all, her father lies and plots to murder the man she loves, then sends her brother to retrieve her and the fleece, defining both as prized objects to serve his status and power. She breaks tradition by choosing her own husband, but follows the dictates of the time when she places her husband above her father. When the play begins, they are living as exiles with their 2 sons in Corinth, and Medea has learned that Jason has left her to marry the young daughter of Creon, king of Colchis. Let me guess what you're thinking. Am I supposed to remember all this? Will there be a quiz? The answer is yes, but it's open book, and I summarized all this in your program, so you ought to get A's. Some of you may even be wondering why we teach literature in a comp course. And in fact, that's been a matter of debate in our profession for decades. Clearly, I'm on the side of those who believe literature works. First, there is the utilitarian principle. It is the most interdisciplinary of all subjects. As Bakhtin noted, most serious literary works draw from philosophy, theology, ethics, and various social and natural sciences. And I'm reminded of the student who complained to me, I can't understand poetry because I don't know enough botany or biology. I don't recognize the flowers, the birds, the insects that they use, so that the poets use to make meaning. But English 111 is a mishmash of majors, and Medea, like other literature, allows each student to provide a perspective informed by the knowledge they've gained in their major and in other classes. The play's dialogues, of course, draw upon philosophy in ancient Greece, and the references to gods and goddesses reflect the theological controversies. History and politics provide insight into the justice system. Psychology helps us to understand motivation. And the Medea syndrome is a recognized psychological disorder. Gender and ethnic studies provide insight into the cause-effect of the marginalization of women and ethnic groups. Medea is an Asian. In Greek terms and in Greek vision, a barbarian. And finally, the sciences. It was a geologist, that's Ben's major over there, who determined that Jason's voyage took place over 3,300 years ago, and that in Colchis, miners used sheepskin to glean gold from the rivers there. And so there was indeed a golden fleece. As a coal miner's daughter, I understood that. I could have brought that evidence in, my perspective. Anyway, work still needs to be done. Chemists can investigate the poisons Medea created, and physicists how her chariot flew. And my brother Dick's here in the audience today. He's a physicist, and if he figures that out, he'll increase our family reputation, which desperately needs it, I'll tell you. The point is that literature allows students to draw on the discipline-specific knowledge they bring into the classroom. And frankly, and this is why I like it, to be honest, stories engage us. We are all storytellers as we try to make sense of our lives, our choices, and the world around us. We are listeners too. And the stories we hear and read connect us to others and open us up to new experiences. We are practiced at predicting, identifying problems, conflicts, tracking logical or illogical progressions, acknowledging ambiguity, and reflecting on what those stories mean to us. Sheridan Blau eloquently argues the best way to prepare students to read and understand complex ideas is to have them read literature, mostly fiction, which demands awareness, a willingness to raise and explore questions, even after achieving always a provisional understanding. He concludes this is the best practice possible for developing the habits of mind that characterize the strongest readers of any text, and reminds us that these are the very skills students employ when they write. I interweave this ancient tale with modern stories to illustrate how the themes that capture the human heart and mind cross boundaries of time, geography, and culture. Early in my career here, these are all true. If they weren't, I'd be in creative writing. These are all true stories. Early in my career here, a student from England filed a complaint arguing that I included too many women and people of color on my syllabus. He told the dean I couldn't count Euripides or Shakespeare as white males because Medea was about an Asian and Othello was about a black man. His complaint was dismissed, and he finally agreed that writers, including white males, have been addressing issues of race and gender for a very long time, and what they had to say remains relevant. Literature matters most when students can find a way into the story, a way to connect to the character events, and to distinguish what's new and unique about what the writer offers. Like most English majors, I would quote D.H. Lawrence, "What is character but action? What is action but character?" It was snappy and seemed easy to understand. But if we're really going to understand the choices that define character, we must see these in context to help students establish entryways, to help students establish entryways and connection and understand context. The class brainstorms the parameters a child inherits at birth. Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, whatever. Don't run yet, guys. We'll make it through. Parameters of birth. So we have no choice over where we were born, when we were born, our race, our ethnicity, our class, our gender identity, our family makeup, or our genetic attributes. Like, I would have loved to have been born rich and good looking. Instead, it was just good looking. I don't even know where that came from. I have no editor. But you know how you feel when you found out somebody was born where you were, or you can see they're the same age you are. You feel an immediate connection. And yet you know not everybody makes the same choices. Even twins take separate paths. But this allows us to also understand connections and differences, and what happens when you have an intersection between, say, race, gender, class. Certainly the challenges and definitions and assumptions that are placed upon people vary according to these markers, right? So students have to place characters according to this chart and then figure out things about them. The myth itself provides Euripides with the foundation for his radical modern tale, full of ambiguity. He fulfills the Aristotelian tradition of the tragic hero, Jason, being of high birth, endowed with extraordinary skill, and of high moral virtue, whose precipitous fall from grace instills pity and fear. Yet the same could be said of Medea. Not only is she of royal blood, but Helios, the sun god, is her grandfather. One up for her. Both are favored by and trust in the gods. Both are brave as their actions reveal. But is Euripides' insistence that their downfall is a result of the choices they make, that they, and not the gods, determine their own fate, that sets him apart from his contemporaries like Sophocles, and led Aristotle to call him the most tragic of poets? On the surface, we all giggle. Don't even look at Jason, but that's what he looks like. There's a point to this. On the surface, it's a love story. Gustave Moreau provides insight into just what went wrong. We see an Edenic portrayal of the couple in the first stage of love, innocence before the fall. Jason, with sword and staff, envisions his future. As you can see, he's looking up, as a leader of men. Medea focuses her attention solely on Jason. He is her future. Euripides is more interested in the morning, days, and years that follow their passionate love and elopement, and the choices made a decade later, a decade where the couple lives quietly in Corinth raising their sons, a decade that brings down a king, a hero, and a kingdom. And the audience, like the characters, wrestle with the intertwining themes of leadership, justice, and the feminine. Ideally, the justice system serves as a corrective when fulfillment of individual desire comes at the expense of others. Euripides, however, insists that justice cannot be disentangled from patriarchy, from the privileges men assumed and the rights they denied women. Robert Mager notes that patriarchy is embedded in the Greek language itself, in the words that are the common synonyms for our word woman. The most respectful reflects her central function, the bearing of legitimate children, most especially sons. Other common terms conflate women with beasts and slaves. And indeed, they were confined by their husbands to their homes, as these terms suggest they could and should be. Men held that women needed no voice, as they lived first under their father's protection, then their husband, and always under the king's protection. If any of these men failed in their duty, the others would step in. Medea's emotional devastation, her deep sense of betrayal when she learns that Creon has chosen Jason for his daughter, and that Jason has married the princess, reveals just how deeply she herself had believed in that principle. The men she had trusted betrayed the meaning of her past. The men she trusted denied the meaning of her past sacrifices and stripped her of any hope for future happiness. Medea exacts a terrible justice. By killing the king, the princess, and her own sons, she not only brings down a corrupt kingdom, but inflicts on Jason the pain and despair she herself has suffered. While Euripides does not ignore the horror of her actions, his portrait is morally complex, realistic, and sympathetic. This play reveals his psychological insight into the feminine and is a radical critique of Greek patriarchy. At first, Medea turns her anger inward, holding herself responsible for her fate. And how many of us have done that, right? What did I do wrong? That he would leave me, only me. The nurse opens the play with a description of Medea's grief. She lies without food and gives herself up to suffering. She twists back her white neck and moans to herself, calling out on her father's name and her land and her home betrayed when she came away with a man who is now determined to dishonor her. The audience hears her desperate cries, as losing Jason is, given her circumstances, a form of self-annihilation. She has no life apart from him. I wish that lightning from heaven would split my head open. Oh, what have I now for life? I would find release in death and leave hateful existence behind me. And she thinks of the men who would protect her, had she not trusted the word of a Greek. Oh, my father, in what dishonor I left you, killing my own brother for it. Feeling powerless, she does what so many of us, except maybe Gandhi or the Dalai Lama, would do. She prays that I may see him and his bride and all their palace shattered for the wrong they dare do me without cause. But she does not directly threaten Creon the king or his daughter or Jason, the charge Creon uses as the basis of her exile. Although Euripides has often been characterized as a misogynist, there's some rumor that he was stoned to death by women. That's not true. It's not a true rumor, but that's what his enemies said. As a misogynist, by forefronting Medea's speech, he employs a key tenet of modern feminist theory as he shifts the analytical lens and focus away from the male viewpoint and experience and toward that of women, shining a light on social problems overlooked or misidentified by the male perspective. A perspective Jason will later offer in defense of his actions, but he will do so within the context of her speech to the chorus. Scholars, I love this picture. Scholars have rightly noted that Medea is a practiced manipulator, and many, like Laura Swift, read this scene as the first instance of her ability to convince others to do her bidding. Yet this is Medea's first appearance on stage. She's spoken to no one during her days of grief. The chorus of women have come to her, and she comes out reluctantly. So we have to trust what she says comes from the heart as she confesses her pain. On me, this thing has fallen so unexpectedly, it has broken my heart. I am finished. I let go all my life's joy. My friends, I only want to die. It was everything to me to think well of one man, and he, my own husband, has turned out wholly vile. She moves then to thoughts and lessons learned from Jason's betrayal. Lessons the women are all too familiar with, though they probably never heard them spoken aloud. My husband's in the audience. He's probably real scared right now. I just pick up the book when I want him to do something. Of all things living, oh, this is a serious speech. Okay, so of all things living, we women are the most unfortunate. With an excess of wealth, it is required for us to buy a husband and take for our bodies a master. For not to take one is even worse. And now the question is serious whether we take a good or bad one. There is no easy escape, for a woman cannot say no to her marriage. She needs prophetic power to know how best to manage him who shares her bed. A man, when he's tired of the company in his home, goes out of the house and turns to a friend or a companion. But we are forced to keep our eyes on one alone. Each woman in the chorus would find a personal connection to this. Their fathers would have chosen their husbands and paid to have their daughters taken off their hands. Some would know from experience, others from the experience of friends, the sorrow of living with a man twice their age, or an alcoholic, or one who spent his time gambling, or one who played the field, or one who used physical force to ensure obedience. And there is no easy escape. She includes, too, those who work out all this well and carefully, whose husbands lightly bear the yoke, and admits, then life is enviable. For 10 years, Medea had lived an enviable life, and her acknowledgement of women with happy marriages both validates their experience, a feminist principle, and appeals to their compassion for those less fortunate, as they know such happiness is too often a matter of luck. She challenges the reasoning behind these laws and injustice. They say the men risk their lives in war while women live in peace at home, and concludes how wrong they are. I would very much rather stand 3 times in the front of battle than bear 1 child. All the mothers in the audience, you bet, yeah. Take that. This is sure to spark painful memories, and I'm serious here. This is sure to spark painful memories of women who died in childbirth, an all too common occurrence, of the stillborn, of multiple pregnancies in the hopes of producing sons. The women knew the agonies of labor, the strength and courage such agonies required. Euripides, through Medea, exposes how women's lives are circumscribed and, unlike his contemporaries, endowed women, barbarians, the Greek equivalent of foreigner, and slaves with human dignity. As in the opening of her speech to the women of Corinth, Medea closes by drawing attention to her status as woman and foreigner. You have a country. Your family home is here. But I am deserted, a refugee, thought nothing of by my husband, something he won in a foreign land. I have no mother or brother, nor any relation with whom I can take refuge in this sea of woe. There are no lies here, no flattery. Medea simply speaks the truth, simply reminds the women of their common bond, while acknowledging that each lives a unique, deeply personal reality. Like many contemporary feminists, Medea asserts that the personal is the political, while their commonalities allow them to forge an alliance. In the process of speaking her truth, Medea convinces both the chorus and herself of the justice of her cause. She asks them to set aside loyalty to king and country if I can devise a scheme to pay my husband back for what he has done to me, him and his father-in-law and the girl who married him, just to keep silent. One of the main functions of the chorus is to voice or guide audience response. Here they say, "This I will promise. You were right, Medea, in paying your husband back." At this point, Medea, in her own eyes and in the eyes of these women, is an agent of justice. As their journals reveal, students connect to Medea's speech as well. Some see parallels between the Greek view of marriage and our modern wedding ceremonies. I've always looked forward to my father walking me down the aisle, but it's kind of weird to think he's going to give me away to my husband. Another wrote, my parents don't have a lot of money, so I've been putting part of my paycheck aside to pay for the wedding. Now I see why it's the bride who pays. It's tradition. Many relate to the theme of betrayal after sacrifice is made. Too many heartbreaks, there are a lot. They share their own feelings of powerlessness and hurt. This semester, a young man suggested that social media and the internet exponentially increase the odds for cheating, and argues there's little difference between physical and emotional betrayal. One woman saw social media, I like this, I sort of threw it in. One woman saw social media as a safer, more effective avenue for revenge than what Medea does. Several women and men have written about the pain of divorce, the shock of finding themselves single parents while their partners begin a new life and family with another. While many women are wronged by their husbands, the stakes are higher for Medea. When the chorus comes to comfort her, they characterize her as the woman an oath brought to the opposite shore of the Greeks. This tells us two things. Medea has found acceptance in the foreign land, but is still defined as a foreigner. She is disregarded as a woman by men and viewed as a barbarian by Greek men and women. Creon's decisions to take her husband for his daughter and exile her exploits this dual vulnerability. And this brings us to the theme of leadership. Okay, this better work. This is, I ask the students, I start a brainstorm and I say to them, what wouldn't you want in a friend? Why would you not choose this person for a friend or reject him as a date? And here's what they come up with. I give them a hint, like the 7 deadly sins. And here's what they come up with. Arrogance, greed, selfishness, disloyalty, lust, nobody likes that, envy, anger, dishonesty, nobody likes that, right? And then I say, what would you want? And now it's easy to see the opposite. They want wisdom, justice, integrity, compassion, honesty, humility, loyalty, and courage. And notice that the students, I've cleaned the chart up, but they come up with these. So they understand what's good and evil, and that's called knowledge of the gods, moral knowledge. And an ideal leader should have that. And the ideal leader's job is to recognize evil and keep it at bay from the kingdom and to promote the good in the kingdom. And in order to do that, he has to have knowledge of the citizenry and understand how to motivate people away from evil and to the good. And all of that takes self-knowledge. If you don't have self-knowledge, you're susceptible to flattery, you won't admit when you're wrong, you won't ask for help, right? So these 3 need to be in balance in order to have an ideal, for the leader to be an ideal. Okay, that's that. And we all just move on like good Americans. Okay. I lost my place, I admit it. Okay, Creon's speech coming on the heels of the chorus, his vow to support Medea, allows us to assess his suitability as a leader and the responsibility he bears for the play's tragic outcome. Exile was a punishment usually reserved for murder. Creon finds he must impose this punishment in front of the female chorus. It's a public audience under his care. As a woman and a foreigner, Medea would find herself shunned, reduced to begging as a means to support herself and her young sons. When students are asked to assess his leadership, they focus on the following quotations as evidence. I'll read longer, but that's what they usually use. Creon, Medea, I order to leave in exile and take along with you your 2 children, and not to waste time doing it. It is my decree. What is your reason, Creon, for banishing me? I am afraid of you. You are a clever woman, versed in evil arts, and angry at having lost your husband's love. Of course, it's Medea's fault, right? She shouldn't be smart. Some students read this as Creon's ability to understand people, their motivations. Others note that his fear of women's intelligence is not reason enough for exile, and this fear also shows a weakness. Medea becomes a trickster. dons a mask to hide her true feelings, a trait often associated in a pejorative way with the feminine. But as Clara Oropeza reminded us in a recent talk on Nin, it is employed by goddesses. Yay, Clara! She's there, yeah, that's me. It was a great talk, actually, and is, in fact, a source of female power. After all, women have no army, can often subdue men with physical force, and must outwit them. So Medea employs all of her tricks of manipulation. First, flattery. Well then, are you frightened, Creon, that I should harm you? Have you injured me? You gave your daughter away to the man you wanted. Oh, certainly I hate my husband, but you, I think, have acted wisely. May the marriage be a lucky one. Creon will not bend. I will drive you and your children out, for I love my family more than you. I love my country too, next after my children, and then threatens to have them removed by force. The ideal leader should see everyone in this kingdom as his child, and the children should not get. You all remember what happened to Dukakis, right? So you're to treat all citizens the same. Students note that Creon's fear makes sense given Medea's past. As one woman wrote, Creon should have followed his first instincts. He underestimates her because she's a woman, even though he knows she's smart and a killer. What happens next is his own fault. They explore other motives. It's true. They explore other motives. With Medea gone, the princess will have Jason's full attention. More importantly, the sons Jason has with Medea will not compete with the grandsons Creon hopes to have. Medea tries one last ploy. Both are aware of the audience of women, and she focuses on what they all have in common, asking for one day to prepare for exile, since Jason has made no provisions for the children. Have pity on them. You have children of your own. Creon, asserting there is nothing tyrannical about my nature, agrees. Stay for this day alone, but warns, if you and your children stay longer, you die. And notice that's the plural use, so it's a death threat against her children as well. And if Sandy Starkey's here, everybody knows how she'd react. She's the original mama bear. In this short time, you can do none of the things I fear, he says. One student read this as the first hint of Medea's willingness to use her children as pawns, which in her words, makes me sick to my stomach. Yet his final statement about nothing tyrannical in my nature sparks the most student discussion. Threatening to kill a woman and two innocent children who've done nothing wrong to make his life and his daughter's life better is the act of a tyrant. Some suggest he is merely saying what he wants to believe about himself, or that he's rationalizing his cruelty, or that he's defending what others may see as an act of weakness. The majority find him lacking in self-knowledge, knowledge of the people. The chorus, of course, will sympathize with Medea. And the gods, arguing that he treats her this way because she has no husband, father, or family to protect her. His actions also suggest that a foreign woman who for 10 years has followed all the rules and so earned a citizen's welcome does not deserve equal justice. Understandably, students have much to say when assessing the relevance for today. I provide no hints or guidance, but simply encourage them to give me examples based on their own knowledge, experience, or perspective. So I don't coach them, I swear. Those who consider leadership often focus on the president in office at the time. For example, I am a black man and I voted for Obama, and so did people of other races. He knows how to motivate people. Another, our current president is really good at motivating people, but I'm not sure he always motivates them in the right way. His rallies in Charlottesville get people stirred up against each other. Some look to the past. As a Jew, I know what a tyrant can do. Hitler failed in the end, but his actions can't be undone. Another wrote, in my opinion, the two men who best meet the criteria are Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Though neither was elected, both motivated people to stand up against injustice, and both were holy men. Sadly, both were assassinated. Students also focus on events in the news. Some have written about the Me Too movement and the Kavanaugh hearings as examples of women banding together to call for justice. Others drew connections with dreamers who, like Medea, were brought to this country and who, with their families, are, quote from a journal, always under the threat of deportation. Others have discussed mothers separated from their children at the border. In a similar vein, students draw parallels with Black Lives Matter and Colin Kaepernick to illustrate the way those who are marginalized experience justice. Some note how white players showed solidarity and saw hope in that. Finally, a young man from Africa seeking political asylum. Sorry, Davey's here, and I'm getting teared up. My student's here, and it was a surprise. Told me, I know what it's like to be in exile. My family had to flee when our side lost, and none of us can risk going back to our home. Stop it, Davey, you're a bad person. All right. All of this confirms that Creon's treatment of Medea increases the audience's sympathy, an extraordinary move on Euripides' part, given the play's outcome, and a move that reflects his understanding of the complications and ambiguities embedded in our notions of justice. Medea is determined to find justice and begins to shape her plan. I will make dead bodies of 3 of my enemies, father, the girl, and my husband. She considers the how. Should she set fire to the bridal mansion, break into the palace, thrust a sword through the heart? She decides on poison, the straight road, the one which I am most skilled, and if that fails, vows to take the sword myself and kill. To garner courage, she reminds herself of who she is and who she was before she married Jason. You see how you were treated, whose father was noble, whose grandfather Helios, and swears by Hecate, whom she most honors and has chosen as a partner, to go forward to this dreadful act. Hecate had helped Medea hone her skills as a sorceress. Most modern views focus on her dark powers, and you think about how sorceresses, and Clara touched on this too, are always turned into dark witches, burned at stakes, but they have power for good too. And the Greeks revered her as protector of the vulnerable, including children, and as a goddess who will exact vengeance against those who harm those she protects. So she was very honored. She reigned right up there with Zeus. Jason, on his side, may believe he will still have the support of Hera and Aphrodite, who had ensured the success of the Argonauts. But these goddesses abandon him. Hera, the protector of wives and mothers, has always favored Medea. First, because Medea, almost alone among women, rebuffed advances by Hera's often randy husband Zeus. Hera often punished the other women for Zeus's infidelities because she felt they betrayed the sanctity of marriage, and Hera herself. She would understand Medea's revenge on the princess, and she will not interfere as the tragedy unfolds. Euripides conveys the power of the feminine in the spiritual realm. Zeus must bend to Hera. Zeus must bend to Hera and Hecate here, and Aphrodite will not go against them. Yet, as Jason's first appearance reveals, he believes that men have the right to do as they please, and wise women, even goddesses, accept this. Producing sons with the princess will make Jason de facto ruler of Corinth, and his speech allows the audience to assess his fitness to rule. He admits that he must be no bad speaker if he is to convince Medea to quietly accept the fate the men have designed for her. Like Creon, he will rationalize his actions, remake his deeds with words in order to maintain his vision of himself and his heroic status. But Aristotle argued that the personal goodness revealed by the speaker is the most effective means of persuasion he possesses. Okay, and Cheryl Glenn reminds us, an effective speaker must also reflect the characteristics and qualities valued by their audience, culture, or community. While Jason obviously sees the chorus, he speaks as he would to a male audience, as the student reading of a shorter edited version reveals.
How hopeless it is to deal with a stubborn temper. You might have lived in this land and kept your home. As it is, you're going to be exiled for loose speaking. Consider yourself most lucky that exile is your punishment.
O coward in every way, I saved your life and every Greek knows I saved it. I killed and so gave you safety, and I betrayed my father and my home. This is how I behaved for you, you wretched man, and you forsook me and took another bride to bed, though you had children, sons. Faith in your word has gone. Indeed, I cannot tell whether you think the gods have ceased to rule. O my right hand and the vow it swore, the knees which you so often clasped in supplication. Where am I to go? To my father's? Him I betrayed when I came to you. And how happy among Greek women you have made me on your side for all this. A distinguished husband I have for breaking promises. When I am cast out of the land quite without friends and all alone with the children, that will be a fine shame for the new wedded groom, for his children and the wife who saved him to wander as beggars.
Insofar as you helped me, you did well enough. But I can prove you have certainly gained more from me than you gave. Firstly, instead of living among barbarians, you inhabit a Greek land and understand our ways. How to live by the law instead of the sweet will of force, and all the Greeks considered you a clever woman. As for my wedding with the princess, I made it in your best interest and the children's. Please keep calm. What luckier chance could I have come across than this? An exile to marry the daughter of the king? It was not that I grew tired of your bed and felt the need of a new bride, but by producing royal sons to be brothers of yours, we would draw the family together and be happy. Do you think this is a bad plan? You wouldn't if the love question hadn't upset you. But you, woman, if your life at night is good, you think you have everything. It would have been far better for men to beget their children in some other way and women to not have existed. Then life would have been good.
You stop at nothing. If you were not a coward, you would not have married behind my back.
And you, no doubt, would have furthered the proposal, you who even now cannot control your temper.
It was not that. No, you thought it no longer respectable to have a foreign wife, an aging Asian princess.
It was not because of a woman I made the royal alliance, but to breed royal brothers to the children I have now. A sure defense to us. Change your ideas of what you want and make more sense.
You can insult me, you have somewhere to turn to, but I shall go from this land into exile friendless.
It was what you chose yourself. Don't blame others for it.
And how did I choose it? Did I betray my husband?
Jason? You did do great. Oh, I came out to be the chorus. So the chorus says, Jason, though you've made the speech of yours look well, you've betrayed your wife and are acting badly. Emboldened by the view of justice they have formed with Medea, and no doubt offended by Jason's views of women, their inferior intellect, their emotional natures, and his sneering complaint that men need women to bear their children, the chorus dares to speak, to challenge and chastise the great Jason and the accepted male standards. Just how Euripides' audience would have responded to this has generated a lot of speculation. Edith Hall notes, in 431 BCE, Jason's plight may have elicited understanding, if not actual sympathy from the audience, from its male audience. One way of looking at Jason is a man trying to make a life as an exile, while burdened with a wife who is not even Greek. Many critics have found Jason's disarmingly cool and rational stance more convincing than Medea's bitter emotional response. That audience and our students easily spot Jason's contradiction and faulty assumptions. As you did. First, he blames her for the sentence of exile and skips over the death threat she faces. Next, he denies her sacrifices. You got more than you gave. And then, what happened? He belittles her homeland. As in Greek, they live by the law instead of the sweet will of force, though this has certainly not been Medea's experience. He claims to value his good name above gold, then tells her he married for money and power that would benefit her and the children. He denies any attraction to or love for the princess, accusing her of being driven by lust and jealousy for the good nights they had had in bed. How then are we to read Medea's seemingly uncontrolled response? Traditionally, reason and emotion have been defined as distinct realms, as antithetical. But research in feminist rhetorics challenges such easy division and leads Glenn to conclude the two are not mutually exclusive, but mutually supportive, and inform the way we engage in our personal, social, and political lives. Medea's emotions stop her from either manipulating or lying, and her response to him is based in logic. It is true that he is alive because of her intelligence and willingness to act on his behalf. She points out that Jason did not discuss the marriage with her first, exposing the lie he tells himself and others. Finally, she reminds him of the oath he had sworn to her and the gods, an oath he betrayed, a serious offense in the eyes of the Greeks. Yes, she slams him, questions his courage and masculinity, and accuses him of being driven by lust for a young girl. But that, too, proves to be true. Aegeus, the King of England, affirms her take on the events. While many have objected to his surprise visit and offer for sanctuary is unlikely as a mere plot device, Mubario reads the scene as a masterpiece of craftsmanship. Not only does Aegeus offer an outsider's perspective, but he serves as a vivid contrast to the autocratic, bumbling Creon. Oops, I don't know where I am. It's okay. And emerges as the closest embodiment to the Greek ideal of leadership. He comes seeking Medea's advice on how to end his childlessness, but those who focus solely on the fact that he has something to gain miss Euripides' careful arrangements of why and how Aegeus offers her sanctuary. He's shocked by Creon's harsh punishment and finds Jason's agreement monstrous, inhuman, immoral. Although he does not know, perhaps does not want to know, her plans, he knows the Corinthians will retaliate and protects his people by telling her she must get to Athens on her own, and agrees to swear an oath, knowing that his people will honor the promise he made to the gods. And this shows that he has self-knowledge. He needs her intelligence for his childlessness, and he's not threatened by it. He has moral knowledge, and he knows how to protect the citizenry. His first reason is for the sake of the gods, the second for the birth of the children, and third, only if she can make it to Athens on her own, and fourth, if both swear an oath. Ironically, it is after Medea gains Aegeus' support that the audience's sympathy begins to shift. She realizes, if I am caught breaking into the house and scheming against it, I shall die, giving her enemies reasons to laugh at her, laugh at a woman thinking she can carry out such a deed. She has only 24 hours, a convention of Greek theater, that in Euripides' hands becomes integral to the action. Would she have acted differently? Has she more time? Instead, she will have her children deliver the poisonous gifts, implicating them in the murder. I weep to think of what I have to do. Next, I shall kill my own children, for there is no one who can give them safety. And when I have ruined the whole of Jason's house, I shall flee from the murder, and I shall have done a dreadful deed. The chorus speaks for all of us. We tell you not to do this thing. She will use Jason to smooth the way. Securing his help will require skilled manipulation. Success will mean that Jason, too, will have played his part in the death of the princess. When Jason agrees to see her, she turns on the charm and resorts to flattery, playing to the high opinion he has of himself and the stereotypes he holds of women.
I have come at your request. I will listen to what new thing you want from me.
Jason, I beg you to be forgiving toward me. It is natural for you to bear with my temper since we have had much love together. I've talked with myself. Fool, I said, why am I so mad? Why am I angry with my husband who does the best thing for me by marrying royalty and having children who will be brothers to my own? What is wrong with me? Now I agree with you. I think you're wise for having this other wife as well as me. But we women are what we are, perhaps a little worthless, and you men must not be like us in this, nor foolish when we are foolish. Now I give in and admit that I was wrong.
I cannot blame you for what you said before. It is natural for a woman to be wild with her husband when he goes in for a secret love. But now you should show better reasoning. You have come to the right decision, like the clever woman you are. Your children will be leading the people of Corinth with their brothers. I want to see them when they have become young men, healthy and strong, better men than my enemies. Medea, why are your eyes all wet with pale tears?
It's nothing. I was thinking about these children. I'm their mother. I know that this is the best thing, not to be in your way by living here, nor in the king's way. I'm going into exile from this land, but do beg Creon that the children may not be banished.
I doubt if I'll succeed.
Then you must tell your wife to beg her father to spare the children banishment.
I will, and with her I'll certainly succeed.
If she's like the rest of us women, you will. I'll send a finely woven dress and a gold diadem, and the children shall present them.
Okay, in the chorus again. Now there is no hope left for the children. Now there is none. They are walking to murder. As we watch her wrestle with her decision, her maternal feelings on full display, we hope against all hope that she will lose her nerve. She remembers the hopes she had at their birth, that they would look after her in old age and adorn her body at death. She admits, sad will be the life I lead and sorrowful for me, and asks, why should I hurt their father with their pain and suffer twice as much pain myself? She admits, too, that her children would have a city, a home, and can leave her behind, that without their mother they may live forever. But it is Jason's vision of the future, of seeing his sons as young men fighting by his side to increase his status and glory, that seals their fate. By hell's avenging furies, it shall not be. This shall not be. And when the messenger risks his life, runs to warn her to flee, she demands the gory details. How'd they die? You will delight me twice as much again if you say they died in agony. And the details are indeed horrific, as the princess dons the dress and diadem with a napalm-like poison that burns her flesh to bone and does the same to the king who embraces his daughter in her agony. And she relishes the tale. Now the question arises, is Medea seeking justice or revenge? Does the young, vain princess who married the man her father chose for her deserve to die? And like Jason and Creon before her, she will rationalize her deeds, telling the chorus, women, my task is fixed, as quickly as I may to kill my children, and not to suffer by leaving them to be slain by another hand, less kindly to them. Force every way will have it that they must die, and since this must be so, I, their mother, shall kill them. All sympathy now shifts to the innocent children. Her rationalization suggests that her personal desire to ruin Jason skews her perspective. She claims that exiled herself, she'll never see her children alive again. Now the deed is done, she will spare them the wrath of the Corinthians. They could not in any case find happiness here in this world, since what happiness they could have been, their father took away. She's shifting the care and protection of her sons to Hecate. In her mind, the boys are better off dead than in the world their parents have created for them. Again, we have the ambiguity. Her actions are barbaric, yet follow a cold, ruthless logic. She out-Greeks the Greeks. The murders will strip Jason of children, family, status, and home. Still, the title of one student's research essay summarizes our shared response to her justice. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. And this moral blindness is evident in the final meeting of the once envied couple. Medea is in a chariot provided by Helios, stands above Jason victorious. Scholars agree the audience would find this ethically shocking. Alone among all king killers in Greek tragedy, Medea escapes without punishment.
Unlock the doors, men, and let me see this double evil. My children are dead, she will pay.
Speak if you wish, but you shall never touch me with your hand.
Oh, you hateful thing, you woman most utterly loathed by the gods, and by me, and by all the race of mankind. You who had the heart to raise your sword against your own children, you, their mother, and left me childless. You have done this, and do you still look upon the sun and at the earth? I wish you dead. Now I see it plain. When I took you from your foreign home, you were even then an evil thing, a traitress to your father and your homeland. Your own brothers you slew. For the sake of pleasure in bed, you killed our boys. There's no Greek woman who would have dared such deeds. Out of all those I passed over and chose you to marry instead, a bitter, destructive monster, not a woman. I will get no pleasure from my newly wedded love, and the boys who I begot and brought up. Never shall I speak to them alive. My life is over.
Zeus the Father knows what you did to me. No, it was not to be that you should scorn my love and pleasantly live your life through, laughing at me, nor would the princess, nor would Creon, who offered the match, drive me away without paying for it. So now, call me a monster if you wish. I, as I had to, have taken hold of your heart.
And you feel the pain yourself. You share in my sorrows.
Yes, and my grief is gain when you cannot mock it.
Oh, children, what a wicked mother she was to you.
They died from a disease they caught from their father.
I tell you, it was not my hand that destroyed them.
But it was your insolence and your virgin wedding.
And for the sake of that, you chose to kill them?
Is love so small a pain, do you think, for a woman?
For a wise one, certainly, but you are wholly evil.
The children are dead. I say this to make you suffer.
The children, I think, will bring down curses upon you.
The gods know who the author of this sorrow was.
Give me the bodies to bury and mourn.
I will not. I will bury them myself so that no enemy will harm them. You, as is right, will die without distinction, struck on the head by a piece of the Argos timber, and you will have seen the bitter end of my love.
Oh, I hate you, you murderess of children.
Go to your palace, bury your bride. You don't feel it yet, but wait for the future.
Oh, children I love.
I loved them, you did not.
You loved them and you killed them.
To make you feel pain.
Oh, wretch that I am, how I long to kiss the dear lips of my children.
Now you would speak to them, now you would kiss them, then you rejected them.
I beg you, let me touch my boys.
I will not.
Oh God, do you hear it, this persecution from this hateful woman? This monster, murderess of children. I wish I had never begot them and then seen them slaughtered.
They're taking up all my time. I find this one of the saddest scenes in all of literature. The two bickering over the bodies of their dead children. Euripides offers no resolution, no sense of hard-won moral insights as compensation for the emotional turmoil we've witnessed. Jason only thinks of all the Greek women he could have had, still believing that women should accept such treatment. And should we feel superior to the ancients, Nikki Lindquist's exploration of the play's relevance offers this sobering reminder. A picture of Andrea Yates's family. That's from a research paper. But Northrop Frye's analysis of tragedy provides a lens that helps us revision our first provisional understanding. While comedy is the world of second chances, tragedy is a world of no exits, where the downfall that inspires pity and fear is the inevitable consequence of the hero's action. So, what you see is traditional, right? The exposition, the story, but incitement number 1, Creon's decision of marriage and exile. Incitement number 2, this is Jason's world of no exit. These two men make this decision. What comes will come. His agreement to marry and exile. And this is where, again, it's modern. It's a dual tragedy, Medea's and Jason's. Medea's vow of justice leads to no exit. The climax 1 is the murder of the king and the princess. Climax 2, the murder of the children. The denouement, Medea and Jason's final meeting. And the resolution brings no consolation, no clear moral insight. Euripides' modernity lies in his subject, the unjust treatment of women and foreigners. His insistence that Medea's fall is at least as significant as Jason's. While his exploration of justice forces us to accept uncomfortable ambiguities, his assertion that the characters, not the gods, determine their fate is clear. The audience is left to contemplate the power of personal choice, to question the consequences of inequality for leaders who abuse their power and for those who take justice into their own hands. That's it.
Come stand here. Good afternoon. I'm Helen Benjamin, third day as interim president. Dr. Millward, there's no greater honor in my mind than receiving an award given to you by your colleagues. And in your lecture today, you have demonstrated at a very high level why you were selected. And so, it is my honor to present to you the Faculty Lecture Medallion 2019 in this 40th year of a lecture, incredible, for your dedication and commitment to teaching, to learning, obviously to your students and to scholarship. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I feel like Maria Callas. Thank you very much. Released. I feel like Maria Callas, you know, throw the flowers on the stage. I'm just very thankful you all came, and I'm even more thankful to be done. Thank you.